Hi, I'm Sarah Reynolds, and welcome to Nathan Hale Park. This is the very first in a series of Nathan Hale Park interviews that I am doing, and we're going to be discussing various social justice issues and political issues in the light of what I like to call progressive patriotism. I'm not a can of soup, so labels don't stick to me very well, but I am absolutely a patriot and definitely progressive. Today we are talking to Aaron Tovo, and he is the organizer of a local Amnesty International chapter. So Aaron, thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, pleasure.
Now, we are talking about the 3 Ds today. We are talking about drones, due process, and detention of the indefinite sort. And so tell us a little bit about Amnesty International and what they do as a human rights organization.
Yeah, okay. Well, Amnesty International, it's a human rights organization that takes on all human rights issues around the world, full spectrum. So we do civil and political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights, all of that. And we are the largest grassroots organization in the world. So we have grassroots chapters, like the local chapter here in Minneapolis, in cities all over the world. Some countries we don't have them, North Korea obviously, but any country where it's legal and safe to do it, we have local activists. And so wherever we are, we do things like writing letters to prisoners. We lobby politicians to have laws changed and policies changed. We do public protests to raise awareness of issues. Anything we can think of, including interviews like this, to raise awareness, to protect and to promote human rights.
Cool. And of course, you and I met at the Right for Rights, which Amnesty does every December at the Center for Victims of Torture over in Minneapolis. And that's a really cool one where we were sending postcards to prisoners of conscience all over the world. And we were also sending letters to government officials too.
Yeah, right. And in fact, that's another event that's done, it's coordinated worldwide. So it's one of the great things about Amnesty is you're not alone. When you write a letter, sometimes you can feel like it's such a small drop in the bucket. But with all the other letters that other people write around the world, other Amnesty activists, you're part of a flood of letters that can come into a particular office or to a cell block in some prison and make some changes happen.
That's so cool.
It can brighten a prisoner's life. It can result in better treatment for the prisoner. And if it's timed right, it can also result in policy changes sometimes.
Cool. And of course, you and I are both wearing our Amnesty International shirts. And I've got the Fighting Bad Guys since 1961, and you've got?
I've got my Amnesty International sweater, and Plain Jane sweater.
And that cool candle.
Yeah, the candle is a symbol of Amnesty International, the candle with the barbed wire around it. And it comes from a Chinese proverb that says it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness.
That is so awesome. Great. Well, let's start right off the bat with the topic of drones. And of course, when our government uses drones, they're executing people without charge or trial. And tell me, and you of course know that I am morally opposed to this, tell me what your thoughts are and what Amnesty International is doing on this important issue.
Yeah, well, it's become a matter of great concern because Amnesty has been trying to raise the issue around the whole global war on terror, or what the Obama administration has now kind of tried to reframe as the combat against Al-Qaeda or something like that, and associated forces. And the problem is we're getting into a situation where we have this kind of war going on throughout the world with no boundaries, no clear set end, and it's all very extra legal. It's outside of, they don't quite call it a war, so the rules of law of war do not apply. And also we have problems like, with the drones, like you said, there's no due process. The president has this secret kill list that we don't know what the criteria are for putting people on that list, but the government can just go in and kill anyone. It could be assassinating a political leader, or sometimes they get the wrong person and it's someone totally innocent.
Yes, that's what they're often getting, people that are not actually engaged in a crime, but they've changed the standard. They have changed it. Before it was women and children and anyone who was not the person that they were targeting, and now it's anybody of military age who's male. That person, even if they weren't on the direct target, they're okay with that person being killed. Now, the other thing too is in Pakistan, I just read this really fascinating article on HuffPost. In Pakistan in 2008, 60% of Pakistanis viewed the United States as an enemy state. Now, since the surge, since President Obama took office in 2008, 74% of people in Pakistan view the United States as an enemy state. It is making us less safe, and it is engendering more vengeance toward our country every time we use these drone strikes.
Right, and that's another problem. Yet people perceive the inherent injustice of going after presumed enemies without any real due process. They know that, we're just, they see it as an invasion of their sovereignty, that our weapons are going over and killing people in their country. And sometimes it's bad people, I guess, but sometimes it's totally innocent people. And the U.S. government itself has said that 4,000 people have been killed with drones, and yet they also say that it's only used to kill Al-Qaeda leaders. However, there haven't been 4,000 Al-Qaeda leaders. The organization's just not that big. So we know that they're killing other people, and there are stories of innocent people being killed. They use a technique called signatures, which is basically a form of profiling, similar to racial profiling, in that if a target meets certain criteria, then it's okay to go after them with a drone. And these criteria, which are deemed suspicious, I guess, are not always accurate. So, for example, there's this one story of they saw 3 people digging a hole in the desert or something in Afghanistan, and so it looked like they were planting IEDs, at least according to this profile. And so they threw a drone strike at them, and they killed what turned out to be 3 boys who were trying to dig a hole to stay cool in the summer heat. Apparently that's something they do to stay cool over there, is to, kind of take shelter in the earth. And so they were just looking for some shelter, and the U.S. killed them, these 4 kids over there in a drone strike.
Now, our own Senator Franken, has been concerned about this violation of due process. Mm-hmm. And yesterday there was that hearing. Now, it was the Senate Judiciary hearing that Senator Franken is on. He's on that committee. And they wanted to ask questions of various people in the government, and they were willing to postpone this hearing. It was supposed to be last week, and the White House said, okay, we'll send someone over, just postpone it until yesterday. And then they gave them all this extra time, and the White House didn't send over a witness to testify. And it was such a disappointment for me personally, because I love Senator Franken, and I love that he's willing to ask the hard questions about what is the oversight? What is the oversight? Is it, if it's just President Obama and some other people who have gotten intelligence, we've got to think in terms of Guantanamo Bay, which we will talk about in just a moment. Guantanamo Bay has been indefinitely detaining people without charge or trial, and over 700 people have been released. The government has said, oops, we made a mistake. These people we don't actually have evidence that they were terrorists, so we let them go. Well, 4,000 people, as you just stated, the government's admitting to about 3,600, I think, and they won't give exact numbers or names, of course. But imagine if all of a sudden we had put all of them in Gitmo, and then many of them were released because we didn't actually have the evidence. I mean, I'm so proud of Senator Franken being our senator, and that he was willing to have this Senate Judiciary Committee on drones. The very first one ever that's ever been held since we've been using drones was yesterday, and we ought to have one every month.
Yeah, well, that's that hearing has been good for transparency, to bring a lot of these issues to the fore. It's a big disappointment that the Obama administration did not send someone, because in his State of the Union address just this past January, President Obama did say that he was going to improve the transparency around this issue of drones and make it clear what the policy is for putting people on this kill list and so forth, and that so far hasn't happened, and here's the perfect opportunity with this hearing. And I know Senator Durbin from Illinois worked hard, and I think he had a lot to do with postponing the hearing for another week. So the Obama administration was given every opportunity, but for some reason they passed on it. And it's kind of mysterious to me, because it seems like that is a perfect opportunity for them, and it makes me worry that much more about this administration's priorities and policies and the secretiveness around the whole drone policy.
Yes, and Gitmo. which, let's talk about Guantanamo Bay now.
Sure.
That is the military prison in Cuba where we are keeping these detainees. We've got 166 detainees right now, and 86 have been cleared for release. But our own Congress has said they don't want them brought to the United States for a federal trial. And President Obama said in 2009 that Guantanamo definitely created more terrorists than it ever detained. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think that again has been a big priority of Amnesty International to have that place closed, because that again fits into this overall picture that we see of this global war without any real boundaries, or that keeps growing. It hasn't got a clear defined end point, and it's all done outside of normal legal structure, much of it anyway. And Guantanamo is kind of like the center point of this, because here you've got this prison that was put on a overseas U.S. military base, so they can say that it's not on U.S. soil, therefore it doesn't have to follow U.S. law, and they won't call these so-called enemy combatants prisoners of war, because then they can avoid the laws that apply to prisoners of war. And so they've created this kind of weird no man's land where the usual rules don't apply, and basically the U.S. military gets to make the rules. And they're not providing much in the way of transparency. They've tortured people there. They've got people that they themselves say are innocent. Even the U.S. has cleared people for release, but they haven't been released. And the reason for that apparently is the U.S. itself won't accept these people on our own soil, and they won't. And it's not safe for them to go back to their home countries in many cases.